Love, heartbreak, and destiny collide in tonight's story. Every moment will pull at your heart. Every twist will leave you breathless. Tell us where you're watching from. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who believes in love. Ready to feel every emotion? Let's start. Asterisk, the rain hammered against the hospital windows like angry fists. Drop a reminder of how everything could change in an instant. Maya pressed her palm against the cold glass, watching the parking lot blur into watercolor streaks of light and shadow. 3 months since the accident. 3 months since she'd killed someone. The coffee in her hands had gone cold hours ago, but she couldn't let go. It was something to hold, something real when everything else felt like drowning. Room 314 is asking for you again. Maya turned. Dr. Chen stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. She knew that looked one that said he understood her guilt but couldn't fix it. He shouldn't even be alive, she whispered, the words scraping her throat raw. But he is. And he's been asking for the driver every day since he woke up. Hallways stretched endlessly before her, each step echoing like a countdown. Room 314. She'd memorized the number, dreamed about it, avoided it for weeks. Her hand trembled as she reached for the door handle. He was awake when she entered. Dark eyes that should have been filled with hate tracked her movement across the room. His left arm was gone severed at the shoulder where her car had crushed. Him against the bridge railing. The space where it should have been was hidden beneath white bandages. But she could feel the absence like a phantom limb of her own. You're her, he said, not a question. His voice was rougher than she'd expected, scarred by the breathing tubes they'd only removed last week. Maya's legs gave out. She collapsed into the visitor's chair, finally setting down the cold coffee. With shaking hands, I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I stop. The word cut through her spiral like a blade. She looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time. My name is Ethan, he said simply, and I need to know why you swerved. The question hit her like ice water. She'd told the police she'd fallen asleep, told her lawyer the same thing, told herself that lie so many times she almost believed it. But his eyes there was something in them that stripped away every defense she'd built. The text, she breathed. The words tumbling out before she could stop them. My ex sent me a text. Said he was getting married, to my sister. Ethan studied her face with an intensity that made her skin burn. So you decided to drive into oncoming traffic. No, he couldn't see. I was crying, and she stopped. The truth sat between them like broken glass. I thought about it. For just a second, when I saw your headlights, I thought about not turning the wheel. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Maya waited for his rage, his accusations, his perfectly justified hatred. Instead, Ethan smiled. It was sharp and dangerous and completely unexpected. Thank you, he said quietly, for telling me the truth. Maya stared at him, confused. I don't understand. You will. His good hand moved to the bedside table, fingers brushing against something she couldn't see. Tell me, Mayes, I know you're Namato. You believe in second chances? The way he said it made her blood run cold. There was something beneath his words. Something that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff in the dark. What do you mean? Ethan's smile widened, and for the first time since entering the room, Maya wondered if she was in danger. I mean, he said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, that maybe we both needed that crash to happen. Maya's apartment felt like a tomb. She'd been sitting in the same spot on her couch for 2 hours, staring at the business card. Ethan had pressed into her palm before she'd fled the hospital. Black cardstock with silver lettering. E. Cross-private security consultant. No address. Just a phone number that seemed to pulse with possibility. Maybe we both needed that crash. To happen, the words had been echoing in her head for 3 days. She'd called in sick to work, ignored her sister's increasingly frantic voicemails, lived on coffee and the growing certainty that her life had fractured into before and after the moment Ethan smiled at her. When her doorbell rang at midnight, she knew it was him. He stood in her doorway wearing dark jeans and a leather jacket that hung loose on his frame, accommodating the missing arm. His face was paler than in the hospital, but his eyes held that same dangerous intensity. You didn't call, he said, stepping inside without invitation. You shouldn't be here. You should hate me. Maya backed away, her heart hammering against her ribs. I destroyed your life. Did you? Ethan closed the door behind him, the soft click somehow final. Or did you save it? He moved through her living space like he belonged there, his good hand trailing over surfaces with casual intimacy. When he reached her bookshelf, he paused at a framed photo Maya with her ex-fiancé and her sister at last year's Christmas party. Beautiful. Family, he said. And the way he said beautiful made it sound like a curse. They're getting married next month. The admission scraped out of her before she could stop it. She was my maid of honor. He weighs Verthing. Ethan set the frame face down on the shelf. Tell me what else you lost. What? The crash didn't just take my arm, Maya. It took your old life too. So tell me what else did you lose? She found herself talking, the words spilling out in a torrent she couldn't control. Her job at the law firm gone after the lawsuit. Her friends Steed stopped calling after the headlines. Apprentices shammed, distant, pretending their daughter hadn't almost committed vehicular homicide. Everyone looks at me like I'm broken, she whispered. Like I'm this fragile thing that might shatter if they say the wrong word. Ethan moved closer, and she caught his scent of leather, and something darker, more complex. What if I told you that? Broken things can be the most dangerous. I'd say you're insane, maybe. His good hand lifted, fingers ghosting along her jawline without quite touching. But insanity feels better than emptiness, doesn't it? The question hung between them, loaded with implications she didn't dare examine. Maya found herself leaning into his almost touch, craving contact she didn't understand. What do you want from me, Ethan? Partnership? The word was soft, seductive. You have skills I need. Legal training, attention to detail, and most importantly understand what it means to lose everything in a single moment. Partnership. In what? His smile was sharp enough to cut. Justice. For people like us. People the system has failed. Maya's pulse quickened. I'm not a killer? Ethan's hand finally made contact, his thumb brushing across her lower lip. Neither was I, until some very bad people decided my sister didn't matter because she was just another runaway, till they killed her. And walked away clean, because they had money and connections, and lawyers like the ones you used to work for. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. A security consultant thing is a cover. What I really do is make sure that people who hurt the innocent face consequences. Real consequences. Maya should have been horrified. Should have called the police, thrown him out, run as far and fast as she could. Instead, she found herself imagining her ex-fiancé's face when he'd told her about her sister. The casual cruelty in his voice when he'd said, "She understands me better than you ever did." You're talking about murder. I'm talking about balance. Ethan's hand moved to the back of her neck, fingers tangling in her hair. You took my arm, Maya, but you also freed me from pretending I was someone I wasn't. Now I'm offering you the same gift. She was drowning again, but this time it felt like falling upward. I can't. Yes, you can. His voice dropped to a whisper. Because you've already killed once. And part of you liked it. The accusation hit like a physical blow, mainly because it was true. In the split second before impact, when she'd seen Ethan's car bearing down on her, there had been something. Not just the impulse to let go, but a dark satisfaction at the thought of taking someone with her. I don't know you, she breathed. You know the only part that matters? His forehead touched hers, and she could feel his breath against her lips. You know, I understand what it's like to want the world to burn. Maya closed her eyes, teetering on the edge of something she couldn't name. When she opened them again, Ethan was watching her with predatory patience. There's a man, he said quietly, who killed 3 women and bought his freedom with Daddy's money. He lives 20 minutes from here, and he thinks he's untouchable. Ethan, say yes, Maya. Say yes, and stop being the victim of your own story. The word hung on her tongue like poison honey, sweet and deadly and impossible to resist. But before she could speak, her phone rang. Her sister's name flashed on the screen, and suddenly the spell was broken. Reality crashed back in all at once. What Ethan was asking, what she was considering, how far she'd already fallen. She stepped back, shaking her head. I can't. I'm sorry. but I can't. Something flickered. Across Ethan's face, disappointment, maybe, or calculation. When he smiled again, it was different. Colder. Of course you can't, he said softly. Not yet. He moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. But you will, Maya. Because now that you've tasted what it feels like to want revenge, you'll never stop being hungry for it. The door closed behind him with a whisper, leaving Maya alone with her racing heart and the terrible certainty that he was right. The wedding invitation arrived exactly 1 week after Ethan left her apartment. Cream cardstock with gold foil lettering that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Brennan request your presence. 20 minutes before lighting it on fire in her kitchen sink. That's when she called the number on Ethan's card. He answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting. I wondered how long it would take. Tell me about the man, she said without preamble. The one you mentioned. A pause. Then meet me at Riverside Park. North entrance. 1 hour. The line went dead. Maya found him sitting on a bench overlooking the water, feeding breadcrumbs to a cluster of ducks. In daylight, he looked younger somehow, more fragile. The empty sleeve of his jacket was pinned neatly, and she found herself staring at the absence before forcing her gaze away. His name is Marcus Webb, Ethan said without looking at her. 34 years old? Trust fund baby. Likes his women? Young and scared. He pulled out a manila folder, thick with photographs and documents. Maya sat beside him, her fingers hovering over the file like it might bite her. The first was Rebecca Chen, 19, pre-med student at the university. They found her body in the river 3 months ago? His voice was clinical, detached. Coroner said she'd been tortured before she died. Webb was questioned but never charged. His father donated $2 million to the police benevolent fund the next week. Maya's hands shook as she opened the folder. Rebecca's face smiled back at her from a college ID photo, bright eyes, whole future ahead of her. The second was Maria Santos, 22. Waitress, single mother, disappeared from the parking lot where she worked. They found pieces of her 6 weeks later. Another photo. Another young woman who'd never make it home. The third was Sarah Kim. She was only 17. Stop, Maya's voice cracked. Please, you asked me to tell you about him. Ethan's hand covered hers on the folder. This is who he is. This is what money and connections can protect. Maya stared at Sarah's photo, a girl barely out of high school, wearing a graduation cap and grinning at the camera. The police really can't touch him. His alibi for each murder was airtight. Private club memberships, restaurant receipts, witnesses who swear he was playing golf or attending charity galas. Ethan's thumb brushed across her knuckles. But alibis can be bought. I've traced the payments. You're sure it's him? Been watching him for months. He's hunting again, Maya. There's a girl, Emma Rodriguez, 21. She works at the coffee shop near his office. He's been following her routine, learning her schedule. Ethan turned to face her fully. She has. Maybe a week before he makes his move, the weight of it settled on Maya's chest like a stone. An innocent girl, walking around with a target on her back, completely unaware that a monster was circling closer every day. What would we do? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Ethan's smile was sharp with approval. Heat flooded her cheeks. I didn't mean I was just asking hypothetically, of course, but his eyes told a different story. Hypothetically, Webb has a routine. Every Thursday night, he goes to his private gym. Stays until midnight. Works out alone. Security cameras have blind spots. Too many steroids have made his heart weak. You'd make it look like a heart attack. We'd make it look like a heart attack. Hate my medical knowledge, your legal expertise. In covering our tracks, his hand tightened on hers. He died thinking about what he'd done to those girls. And Emma Rodriguez would get to live. Maya closed the folder, but she couldn't unsee those faces. 3 young women whose only crime was crossing paths with a predator who had enough money to hunt them with impunity. I can't be an accessory to murder. You already are. The words hit like a slap. Every day Webb breathes is another day. Those families don't get justice. Every day Emma stays unaware is another day closer to her death. Your conscience isn't worth more than her life. The accusation burned because it was true. Maya had spent months drowning in guilt over one car accident, while this man walked free after orchestrating 3 brutal murders. There has to be another. Why, there is. Ethan stood, brushing breadcrumbs from his jeans. You can go back to your empty apartment, drink yourself to sleep, and pretend you never saw those photos. In 2 weeks, when Emma's body turns up in pieces, you can tell yourself it's not your fault because you followed the law. He started to walk away, then paused. Or you can decide that some laws aren't worth following when they protect monsters. Maya sat alone on the bench as the sun set behind her, the folder heavy in her lap. Rebecca Chen smiled up at her from the photograph, frozen forever at 19, never knowing she'd become a statistic in a rich man's game. When her phone buzzed, she didn't recognize the number, but she knew who it was before she answered. Thursday night, she said without preamble. What do I need to do? Ethan's voice was warm with satisfaction. Good girl. Meet me tomorrow, and I'll explain everything. As Maya hung up the phone, she caught her reflection in the dark water of the lake. The woman looking back at her was a stranger, someone harder, more dangerous, with eyes that had seen too much. She didn't look away. The private gym smelled like sweat, leather, and expensive cologne. Maya pressed herself against the emergency exit door, heart hammering as she watched Marcus Webb through the crack. He was everything she'd expected: tall, handsome in that entitled way, muscles built by personal trainers rather than honest work. The kind of man who'd never heard the word no and meant it. He's alone, she whispered into her earpiece. Ethan's voice crackled back, steady and sure. Security cameras? Maya glanced up at the corners where they'd identified the blind spots. Disabled. We have maybe 20 minutes before the backup system kicks in. Perfect. Remember, you're just the lookout. I handle Webb. But as Maya watched Webb load another plate onto the bench press, her hands clenched into fists. This monster had tortured 3 innocent girls, would torture more if they didn't stop him. The law had failed them all. The emergency door opened. Silently, Ethan slipped inside, moving with predatory grace despite his missing arm. He'd changed since she'd met him, grown harder, more focused. The gentleman from the hospital had been replaced by something colder, more dangerous. Maya was supposed to watch the hallway, maintain their escape route. Instead, she found herself creeping closer to witness justice finally being served. Webb was mid-lift when Ethan approached, the barbell loaded with more weight than most men could handle. 250 pounds of metal suspended above his chest. Marcus Webb, Ethan said quietly. Webb's eyes shot open. He tried to sit up, but the weight held him pinned. Who the hell Rebecca Chen? Maria Santos. Sarah Kim. Ethan stood over him, just outside his reach. Do you remember their names? Understanding flickered in Webb's eyes, followed by a cold calculation that made Maya's skin crawl. Even now, even trapped, he was looking for an angle, a way to buy his freedom. I don't know what you think you know, Webb said carefully, but I can make this worth your while. Whatever someone's paying you, I'll double it. No one's paying me. Ethan's voice was soft, almost gentle. This is personal. Look, if this is about those girls, you've got it wrong. I was never even charged because Daddy bought your alibis. Ethan moved closer. But we both know what you did to them. What you're planning to do to Emma Rodriguez. Webb's face went pale. I've never heard that name. She works at Grind Coffee. Takes the 47 bus home every night at 9:15. Lives alone in a studio apartment on 5th Street. Ethan's good hand rested on the barbell. You've been watching her? For 3 weeks. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Housed. Maya held her breath, waiting for Ethan to push down on the bar. To end this monster's life and save Emma's? Instead, Webb started laughing. You have no idea what you've walked into, he said, and there was something in his voice that made Maya's blood turn to ice. Did you really think you were the first people to try this vigilante bullshit? Ethan's grip tightened on the bar. What are you talking about? Ask your partner there. Ask Maya about the real reason she crashed into you. Maya's world tilted. Webb couldn't know her name. Couldn't know she was here. Unless… That's right. Sweetheart, come on out where I can see you. On unsteady legs, Maya stepped into Webb's line of sight. His smile was vicious, triumphant. You want to know why the crash really happened, Ethan? It wasn't because of some text about her sister. It was because Maya here used to work for my father's law firm. She was the one who helped me beat the charges. The words hit Maya like physical blows. That's not I never. Brennan Walsh and Associates. You were a junior associate on my case. You're the one who found the procedural error that got the DNA evidence thrown out. Webb's eyes glittered with malice. You're the reason I walked free. Maya's legs gave out. She collapsed against the wall, memories flooding back in sickening waves. A case file on her desk. Late nights researching precedents, her supervisor praising her attention to detail when she'd found the technicality that would save their client. She'd never known the client's name, never looked at the crime scene photos, never connected the case she'd worked on with the monster lying beneath them. Maya. Ethan's voice was hollow, distant. Is it true? She opened her mouth to deny it, but no words came. The truth sat between them like broken glass. She had helped this man escape justice, had enabled him to kill again. The guilt drove her right to you, didn't it? Webb continued, his voice dripping. With satisfaction, poor little Maya, so eaten up by what she'd done that she tried to kill herself and took you with her. And now, you're both here, trying to play hero. Ethan slowly released his grip on the barbell and stepped back. When he looked at Maya, his eyes held a betrayal so deep it stole her breath. You knew, he said quietly. All this time you knew. You were the one who set him free. I didn't know it was him. I swear, Ethan, I never saw his name, never knew what the case was really about. Bullshit. The word cracked like a whip. You're a lawyer? You don't work cases without knowing what they are. I was a junior associate. I did what I was told. Researched what they gave me, and never asked questions because the money was good. Ethan's voice held a disgust that cut deeper than any blade. You knew exactly what kind of firm you worked for. What kind of people were you helping? Maya wanted to deny it, but the words died in her throat. Because he was right. On some level, she'd always known, but chosen not to look too closely at the cases she worked, the clients she helped escape consequences. This is touching, Webb said, but I've got a trainer coming in 10 minutes, so either kill me or get the fuck out of my gym. Ethan stared down at him for a long moment, then turned away. Ethan, wait, we're done, Maya. You and me, this whole thing, we're done. He walked toward the exit without looking back. Maya scrambled after him, panic clawing at her throat. Please, you can't leave him alive. Emma Rodriguez will have to take. Her chances is just like Rebecca and Maria and Sarah did, thanks to you. The emergency door slammed shut behind him, leaving Maya alone with the monster she'd helped create. Webb was sitting up now, casually racking the weights like nothing had happened. You should probably run, sweetheart, he said without looking at her. I've got some calls to make, and my father's people don't like witnesses. Maya stumbled toward the door, her vision blurring with tears. In the space of 5 minutes, she'd lost the only person who'd understood her guilt, and condemned an innocent girl to death. As she pushed through the exit, Webb's laughter followed her into the night, cruel and victorious, and absolutely unrepentant. Maya found Ethan in the hospital parking garage at 3 a.m., sitting in his car with the engine running. She'd been searching for him for hours, calling every number she could think of, driving through every place they'd met. The sight of him here where it all began felt like fate. She tapped on the passenger window. He didn't look at her, but he unlocked the door. Emma Rodriguez is missing, she said as she slid into the seat. It's been on the news for 12 hours, Ethan's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I know, Webb took her, just like you said he would, I know. Maya studied his profile in the dim light. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble he hadn't bothered to shave, the hollow look of a man who'd lost everything twice. We can still save her. There is no we. His voice was flat, emotionless. You made sure of that. I found him. I pulled out her phone, showing him the address she'd spent all night tracking down. Webb's father owns a warehouse complex outside the city. It's where he takes them, where he took the others. Finally, Ethan turned to look at her. How? I called in every favor I had left. Used my legal contacts, my old firm's resources, the same connections that helped him get away before. She met his gaze steadily. I know you don't trust me anymore. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. That girl is going to die if we don't move now. Ethan stared at the address on her screen. This could be a trap. Webb could have fed you false information. It could be. But what if it isn't? Maya leaned closer, desperate. Ethan, I can't undo what I did. I can't bring back Rebecca or Maria or Sarah, but maybe we can save Emma. For a long moment, the only sound was the engine humming. Then Ethan turned the key, cutting the power. If we do this, he said quietly, there's no going back. Webb's father has connections everywhere, police, judges, and prosecutors. The moment we move against his son, we become targets. I know. They'll hunt us down, kill us both, probably make it look like an accident or a murder-suicide. I know. And even if we succeed, even if we save Emma and expose Webb, we'll still be killers, murderers. There's no redemption in that, Maya. No absolution. Maya thought of Emma's face from the news report. Young, scared, probably praying for someone to find her. I'm not looking for redemption. I'm looking for justice. Ethan studied her face in the darkness. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him. Because he started the engine again? The warehouse district was a maze of abandoned buildings and rusted shipping containers. They found Webb's car parked behind Building 7, just as Maya had predicted. No other vehicles in sight. He's confident, Ethan murmured, checking the pistol he'd pulled from under his seat. Thinks no one can touch him. Maya stared at the gun. Where did you? I've been planning this for months. Before I met you, before the crash, I was always going to kill him. Ethan's eyes were cold, resolved. You just gave me a reason to make it personal. They moved through the shadows like ghosts, years of rage and guilt making them quieter than they'd ever thought possible. The warehouse door was unlocked, another sign of Webb's arrogance. Inside, space was divided into smaller rooms, probably former offices. Light spilled from under one of the doors at the far end. As they got closer, Maya heard voices, Webb's smooth tenor and a girl's terrified sobbing. Ethan motioned for Maya to stay back, but she shook her head. They were in this. Together now, for better or worse, Webb had Emma chained to a chair in the center of the room. She was alive but hurt bruises on her face, blood on her clothes. When she saw them in the doorway, hope flickered in her eyes. Well, Webb said, without turning around. I wondered when you'd show up, though I have to admit I'm surprised. You came back together. He was holding a knife, the blade stained with Emma's blood. I was just explaining to Emma here how this is all your fault, Maya. If you hadn't been such a thorough little lawyer, I'd be in prison right now instead of expanding my hobbies. Let her go, Ethan said, raising the gun. Or what? You'll shoot me? Webb laughed, pressing the knife to Emma's throat. Go ahead, but I promise you she dies first. The standoff stretched endlessly. Maya could see the calculation in Ethan's eyes, weighing odds and angles. But with the knife at Emma's neck, there was no clean shot. That's when Maya understood what she had to do. You want me? She said, stepping forward. I'm the one who really ruined your life, right? The one who took away your perfect vigilante fantasy? Might not let Emma go and take me instead? One guilty life for one innocent one? Webb's eyes lit up with interest. Oh, that's an intriguing offer. But what makes you think I'll honor thee? Bargain? Because killing me will hurt him more than killing her? Maya nodded toward Ethan. And you want him to suffer? For a moment, Webb considered the proposal. Then he smiled, the same vicious expression she'd seen in the gym. You're right. This is much better. He released Emma, shoving the girl toward Ethan. But as he moved toward Maya, she saw her chance. Years of self-defense, classes her mother had insisted on. Muscle memory she'd never thought she'd need. Maya lunged forward, grabbing Webb's wrist and twisting the knife away from Emma's throat. Not toward herself as he expected, but toward him. The blade slid between his ribs with surprising ease, finding the heart that had never shown mercy to any of his victims. Webb's eyes went wide with shock, then fury, then nothing at all. He collapsed. Blood pooling beneath him on the concrete floor, Maya stood over his body, her hands shaking, the knife still clutched in her grip. She'd done it. She'd actually killed him, Maya. Ethan's voice seemed to come from very far away. Maya, we need to go. But she couldn't move. Couldn't look away from Webb's face, slack and empty in death. She'd ended a life not accidentally this time, but deliberately, with full knowledge and intent. Maya. Ethan's hand on her shoulder broke the spell. She looked up to find him watching. Her with something that might have been respect, or fear, or both. Is it over? Emma whispered from the corner where she huddled. Maya wiped the blood from the knife on Webb's shirt and dropped it beside his body. It's over. They called the police from Emma's phone, leaving an anonymous tip about Webb's location and the evidence they'd planted to tie him to all 3 murders. By the time the first squad cars arrived, they were gone. 3 months later, Maya stood in the cemetery where Rebecca Chen was buried. The headstone was simple granite, engraved with dates that bracketed a life cut far too short. Lilies at the base of Rebecca's favorite, according to her sister. Any regrets? Ethan asked, joining her at the grave. Maya considered the question. They'd changed their names, moved to a city where no one knew them, started over completely. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but it was the one she'd chosen. No, she said finally. Do you? Ethan's good hand found. Hers, fingers intertwining. Ask me tomorrow. They walked away together, 2 broken people who'd found a way to heal each other's wounds. Behind them, wind stirred the lilies against Rebecca's headstone, carrying their petals into the darkening. Sky-like prayers, 4th dead.